If you're someone that spends a ton of hours in front of a computer screen each week, then chances are you've probably looked into a monitor light bar at some point in time. And more than likely, that number one light bar that has come up throughout your search is made by a company called BenQ. But as highly rated as the BenQ monitor light bar is, it is the most expensive product of its kind on the entire Amazon marketplace. But is that cost really justified? After all, you get what you pay for, right? Well, that is the million-dollar question that we will explore further in this video, as we weigh the pros and the cons of the BenQ $109 light bar versus the $35 light bar from consumer electronics company Baseus. First off, big thanks to Baseus for sending over their monitor light bar for me to test, as well as for hosting a giveaway for my subscribers based in the US. For those who qualify, in order to enter the giveaway, you'll need to take these steps before commenting Mr. Tech Enter down in the comments below. Subscribe to the channel if you have not already, and then use the links embedded in the description in order to follow my Instagram and TikTok accounts. And then comment down below Mr. Tech Enter. Let's get into the specs for the BenQ and Baseus monitor light bars. Now, I've put together a cheat sheet here to summarize the major points of interest for comparison. Dimensions are very much on par with respect to length and diameter of each of the bars, and the power input and the cable length are identical. However, the BenQ bar can get twice as bright as the Baseus at a max of 320 lumens as opposed to 160. But as we'll discuss later on, this doesn't necessarily mean that the BenQ is the unquestionable winner in the brightness category. BenQ also has a wider range of color temperatures with 8 to choose from versus 3 for Baseus. However, Baseus can accommodate slightly narrower monitors than BenQ with a minimum of 0.3 inches. But on the flip side, the BenQ can support slightly wider monitors up to 1.2 inches thick. But definitely take these monitor size recommendations with a grain of salt, because I do have an LG ultra-wide curved monitor that has a 1-inch thickness, and both the BenQ and the Baseus light bar monitor work just fine. Now, as far as brightness levels go, both light bars have very good ranges of adjustment, but you do get a bit more precision control with BenQ because you're able to tap as well as long press the brightness button to manually adjust. Whereas with Baseus, long pressing the brightness touch button is the only method of toggling between the brightness levels. And the final notable spec here is that the BenQ monitor light bar does have a brightness auto adjustment feature, whereas the Baseus does not. Both monitor bars ship with very clean and simplistic packaging with an image of the product on the front. However, the BenQ does include a brief instructional summary on the very back, which I actually found very helpful during the initial setup. Baseus comparatively does not include instructions on the packaging itself, but there is a quick start guide inside of the box which includes very easy to read illustrations and steps to follow. Upon opening the box for the Baseus monitor light bar, we're presented with the styrofoam encasing which houses the quick start guide, the USB to USB-C cable, and the monitor light bar itself, which is wrapped inside of a plastic bag and fully assembled, meaning that it is pre-attached to the mounting clip. Now, there are two separate rotational systems with the design of the Baseus bar. The first allows for the rotation of the light bar base that the bar is attached to. The second allows for rotation of the spring-loaded clip that secures the unit to the top of the monitor. The clamp opens up to nearly 2.5 inches wide, and there is a very grippy rubber pad on both parts that come in contact with your monitor. I do want to point out that due to the extremely flat plate, the Baseus light bar is not going to lay perfectly flush on curved monitors. But as you can see, this doesn't mean that the bar won't be stable enough to get the job done. Now, as far as the LED light source, you'll notice that the LEDs sit behind a textured frosty diffuser, which assists in softening the light so it isn't too harsh, which I really don't mind. But this is also likely part of the reason that the Baseus lumens output is much lower than with the BenQs. There are 3 touch buttons to the right of the bar that you're able to toggle in between to perform basic functions. From left to right, we have the brightness dimmer, the color temperature regulator, and the power on and off switch. Now, as you might expect, given the price discrepancy between these two products, the presentation with unboxing the BenQ light bar has a more premium experience feel. Upon opening the box, you're immediately presented with a diagram-style layout that labels each and every area of interest. It's a good idea to hold on to this, at least until you familiarize yourself with every component. Let's kick things off with taking a closer look at the USB to USB-C 5V power cable. You'll notice that the cable has a flat design as compared to the Baseus, which does help it lay a bit more flush so it's harder to spot when it's mounted on top of your monitor. And again, each of these cables are identical in length at 4.9 feet. Next, we come to the monitor mounting suspension clip, which has a vastly different design than with Baseus. The BenQ has a much more rounded back plate, and though both mounting clips have a good solid amount of weight to them, the BenQ is noticeably heavier. Another noticeable difference between these two clips that's a lot harder to show on camera is that the Baseus clip has a much tighter suspension system, meaning that the clamp pressure is a lot stronger than what you're getting with BenQ. And this can be seen as both a positive and a negative with Baseus, because the tighter clamping power means that it's a lot harder for the light bar to slip around on top of your monitor. But you do have to be extra careful that the clamp isn't clamping down on the screen with that extra clamp force. Without this additional clamping power for the Baseus, it would be virtually impossible for a flat design such as this to work with my curved monitor, so I really can't complain too much about it. Switching gears back to BenQ, there's technically only a single rotation point on the clip, which is used to attach the light bar to the top of the monitor, because once the light bar is attached to the clip housing, it's the light bar itself that you're able to swivel to adjust the angle of the light. Comparatively, if you examine the Baseus light bar closely, the bar doesn't swivel or move at all. It's the base that it is attached to that allows for the movement. Now, as compared to 2.5 inches, the BenQ mounting clip fully opens to just shy of 3 inches. And as with Baseus, both parts that come in contact with the monitor are coated with a rubber padding to protect the surface and to help keep it from slipping around. Features. Let's kick things off with comparing the physical buttons and their layout for each of the light bars. Again, Baseus features 3 touch controls in total, and they are all placed to the far right of the light bar. The brightness adjustment button allows for toggling between 5 to 100%. The color temperature button allows for adjustment between 2800 Kelvin, which is on the warm end, 4000 Kelvin, which is a mix of both warm and cool, and 5500 Kelvin, which is on the far cool end. And of course, the power button is on the very far end. BenQ comparatively has the touch controls much more spread out. On the left, we have the brightness button, which offers 14 levels of control that you can toggle in between by either short or long press. And then we have the color temperature adjustment button that allows for slightly warmer and slightly cooler temperatures as compared to Baseus. And the final physical feature to the left of the light bar is the light sensor itself that is used to auto adjust the brightness depending on the overall ambient light inside of the room. On the right side of the BenQ bar, we have the auto dimmer button, which relies on that light sensor that we just covered. The indicator light actually shines green when the auto dimmer is in use. And finally, to the right of that dimmer button, we have the power on and off switch. Okay guys, time for a brief side-by-side demonstration to support some of the concepts previously discussed. Take note of the embedded captions, which will highlight some of the settings and the color temperatures currently used. Let's get to it. Alright guys, let's get back to that $1 million question that I posed at the beginning of the video. If you decide to pay $109 for the BenQ monitor light bar, do you get what you pay for? Well, it depends on your perception of value. But I think the better question to ask here is the BenQ monitor light bar, which clearly has a number of advantages over Baseus, justified in having a list price that is over 3 times the cost? In other words, is the BenQ monitor light bar $74 better than Baseus? After testing both of these light bars out extensively over the past few weeks, My honest answer is a definitive no. While the BenQ does have a number of bells and whistles that the Baseus unit flat out does not, higher lumen output, 8 color temperatures, a greater degree of control for brightness levels, I do not feel that these additional features amount to $70. You could literally buy 2 additional Baseus light bars with that difference. If I'm being honest, throughout my testing, I was searching for additional reasons to justify the discrepancy, but I just couldn't find enough compelling reasons. The Baseus light bar does not have poor quality issues. It does not make buzzing noises when you raise up the brightness, and it does not feel fragile or cheap. In fact, the aluminum used for the Baseus light bar, excluding the monitor clip, actually feels heavier and more solid than with the BenQ. The 8 color temperatures that the BenQ offers, as opposed to the 3 for the Baseus, are great. But are you really going to be using all 8 of them on a daily basis? Probably not. And I could argue that the same is probably true about max brightness. You're darn right that it's cool that BenQ can put out a max of 360 lumens. But are you really going to be maxing out a device such as this that sits right above your eye level and fires straight down at your keyboard? Probably not if you don't like headaches. And just to add to that, I actually find myself wishing that the BenQ brightness could dim down just a bit lower, similar to the soft output levels that you're able to achieve with the Baseus. But on the flip side, I don't really find myself wishing that the Baseus could get a whole lot brighter as with the BenQ. This goes back to my point earlier on during the specs when I said that the BenQ's 360 lumens doesn't necessarily mean that it wins the brightness category altogether. Moreover, dimensions are virtually identical between these 2 monitor light bars. So you're getting just about as much coverage with Baseus as you are with BenQ. So with all of these factors considered, I'd have to conclude that at least for me, the biggest selling point where the BenQ monitor light bar is concerned is the hanging clip system, which does sit much more ergonomically on top of my curved monitor, and the auto dimming feature, which I do use quite a bit. But even with that considered, I still feel that the Baseus $35 price point represents a significantly better value proposition. I like the simplicity of the 3 controls on the far right and the fact that the icons are the buttons themselves, so I don't have to reach above them as with the BenQ to use them. Additionally, each of the 3 icons on the Baseus unit have light indicators on at all times, even when the bar is shut off, so they're much easier to locate in a low lit room. Okay guys, before I wrap this one up, I want to bring to your attention 2 additional product samples that Baseus sent my way: the Quick Charge Pro and Mini wall chargers. Each of these devices feature both USB-C and USB 3.0 ports and are compatible with tablets, iPhone 12, Samsung Galaxy S21, and the list goes on. The Quick Charge Pro even ships with a USB-C cable in the box, and it supports a max of 100 watts, so it can fully charge a MacBook Pro 15 in just over 2 hours, while the Mini supports a max of 65 watts and is able to quick charge a MacBook Pro 13 in just over 2 hours. Both of these quick charge devices have foldable plug prongs, and they're very compact and slim, so they're really easy to toss inside of a bag when you're on the go. If you're interested in either of these products, you can find a link in the description below, and you'll also find some additional promotional discounts and savings there as well. Well, that about wraps things up for this one. If you found any part of this video to be helpful, make sure to give a quick thumbs up and to subscribe for more content like this. I'll see you guys in the next video, but until then, peace.